A very good morning to my dear friends and respected lecturers. It's a great privilege for me to deliver this seminar before you people. And today I would like to discuss about carry Lucas data from the subject digital circuits and logic designing. And coming into the topic, a carry Lucas data is basically a electronic adder used in digital and logic designing. And the main purpose of using the carry Lucas data is for the adding of two binary digits. For example, let us take two binary digits as A2, A1, A0 is the first binary digit, and B2, B1, B0 is the second binary digit. For adding two binary digits, initially take carry as 0, that is C0 is taken as 0. If we add these 3 bits, we get the two outputs. One is sum S0 and carry C1. If we add these 3 bits, we get the two outputs. Similarly, sum is S1 and carry is C2. On adding these 3 bits, we get the sum is S2 and carry is C3. In this way, we add two binary digits. So, for the same purpose, we use the carry Lucas data. But you can also pose a question to me: why to use only carry Lucas data instead of using three full adders for the same purpose? The main difference between using three full adders and this carry Lucas data is, in three full adders, if let us say the case of three full adders, this is full adder 1, this is full adder 2, this is full adder 3. Full adder 1, 2, 3. Initially, carry is given as 0. Inputs are A0, B0. These inputs are A1, B1. These inputs are A2, B2. And the output from this carry is, output carry from this adder is C1. And the output carry from this adder is C2. Similarly, C3. And the output is S0, S1, S2. If you look here, for the functioning of full adder F2, full adder 2, we need to wait until the carry from the full adder 1 should come. So, there is a delay in time. Similarly, for full adder 3 to function, we have to wait for the carry from full adder 2 to come. So, to prevent this time delay, we use the concept of carry Lucas data. So basically, if we add two binary digits, the truth table will look like this. A, B are the two binary inputs, C in, C out. The C input carry may be 0, whether 0 or it will be 1. 0 or 1, 0 or 1, 0 or 1, 0 or 1. And on adding these three, we get, basing on these three inputs, we get the carry output, C out. Here it is 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 1. Let us take these two as case 1. Let us consider these two as case 1 and these two as case 2. If you observe in case 1, the carry output is 1 when any one of the input is 0 and other is 1. See here, A is 0 and B is 1. Here, A is 1, B is 0. So, any one of the input is 0 and other input is 1, and the carry input should be always 1. So, the expression for C out in this case may be C out equal to A x nor B dot C in. A x nor B dot C in. And if you consider case 2, in both the cases, both the inputs are 1, and it does not depend on the C input, because it may be 0 or it may be 1. The output is always 1, so it does not depend on C in. It is only depending on AB values. So in this case, the expression for C out is A dot B. A dot B. So considering the two cases with OR gate, the expression for C out is A x nor B dot C in plus A dot B. So the output carry expression is A x nor B dot C in plus A dot B. This is the OR gate. If you observe here, A x nor B is called propagator. It is indicated as P, and A dot B is called as generator. It is indicated as G. Why it is called as propagator means it gives the output carry C out basing on the value of C in. It is depending on A, B and also C in. So it is called as propagator. whereas G does not depend on the C in value. It only depends on A and B and gives the C output value. So it is called as generator. So we can now write C out as P C in plus Z. It is simplified expression for C out. So let us generalize the condition. C1 equal to P naught C naught plus G naught. P naught C naught plus G naught. Similarly, C2 equal to, see here it is only depending on C naught value. See here C2 equal to P1 C1 plus G1, where P1 is P1 and C1 can be written from this expression as P naught C naught plus G naught plus G1. See, the carry output C2 does not depend on the C1 value. That is, this is the previous output. It does not depending on the previous output. It is depending on only the initial carry C0. So this is the advantage of carry liquid adder. It prevents the time delay for C. The carry C2 is actually, while using a full adder, the carry C2 depends on the input carry C1. So there is a time delay for the carry C1 to come. But here it is not depending on the carry C1. It is only depending on initial carry C0, initial carry. So this is the advantage of full adder, carry liquid adder. Similarly, C3 equal to P2 C2 plus G2. On substituting C2, you can get the expression for C3. Similarly, C3 also does not depend on the C2 value. It depends only on the initial carry C0. So let us design the carry liquid adder using gates. First of all, how to get propagator and generator. The expression for propagator is A x nor B and generator is A dot B. So if the inputs are A and B, XOR gate between A and B gives the propagator P, and the AND gate between the A and B gives the output generator G. AND gate gives the output generator G. This is how we can get the propagator and generator. So let us see how the carry C0, C1, C2 and C3 are getting generated in the carry liquid adder. Initially the carry is C0, propagator G0 and generator G0, and it is P1, G1, P2, G2. If we observe previously the expression for C1, C2 and C3, for C1 we require one AND gate and one OR gate. For C2 we require two AND gates and one OR gate. And for C3 we require three AND gates and one OR gate. So let us apply this here. For C1 we require one AND gate and one OR gate. One AND gate and one OR gate. For C2 we require two AND gates and OR gate. And for C3 we require three AND gates and one OR gate. These are AND gates, these are OR gates. How to get C1? See, C1 equal to P0 C0 plus G0. AND gate between P0 and C0, OR gate between P0 C0 and G0 gives the value of C1. AND gate between P0 C0 and OR gate between P0 C0 and G0 gives the value of C1. Similarly, we can get the values of C2 and depending on the expression for C2 and C3, and I am not mentioning here because of insufficient place. Kindly bear it. See here we get the values of C1, C2, C3, and initially we are provided with the carry C0, and we also know the values values of P1, P0, G1, G0. So depending on these values we can get the sum, because the expression for sum is A XOR B XOR C. So here observe A XOR B is nothing but P, propagator, and XOR operation between propagator and C input gives the value of sum. Example, S1 equal to P1 X naught C naught. S2 equal to P2 X naught C1. So in this way we can also get the values of sum and carry using the carry-Lucas adder. Because of insufficient place, I am not able to draw the whole carry-Lucas adder in the same picture, but this is the general concept of carry-Lucas adder. The main advantage is we need not to wait for the previous input carry, so thereby deleting the time gap between these additions. This is my advantage of carry. Hope my seminar on digital circuits and logic designing on the concept of carry-Lucas adder is up to the mark. And now I would like to discuss about the concept of inheritance from the subject Python programming. And in order to discuss the concept of inheritance, first we must have some basic idea about what is a class and what is an object. See, Python is a Python is an object-oriented programming language. That means it follows the concept of OOPS. It follows OOPS principles, and the basic thing in OOPS principles is class and object. An object is something which is physically present. That means you can take an object as a person or a bike or a car, etc. an object, and a class is a blueprint for the object. That means similarly, like we use a blueprint to construct a house. If we want to construct n number of houses of the same model or the same design, we use the same blueprint to construct n number of houses. That means all the methods and variables of a class can be accessed by the object. Okay, so the class is a blueprint for the object. And what an object contains. For example, we take a person as an object, and the person name is Raju. An object has some attributes and actions. An object has certain attributes and actions. These attributes and actions are like, for example, take an object as a person, Raju, his name is Raju. He has name, age, sex, gender, etc. Those are all attributes. Those can be treated as variables in Python programming. So attributes can be treated as variables in Python programming, and these actions can be treated as methods of a class in Python programming, like talking, singing, drinking, dancing, etc. So an object contains variables and methods. This is the concept of object and class. And coming to the main topic, inheritance. Inheritance is nothing but defining a class which inherits the properties and methods of from another class. That means, now let us define a class A. The class name is A. It has some methods and variables, and let us define a another class B. Class B is being inherited class A. Class B is inheriting class A, and it does not contain any statements. It simply contains pass. Pass means empty. The body of the class is empty, but we can access all the methods of class A using class B. That means we just simply declare an object for class B, and we can access all the methods of class A using the object of class B. This is the concept of inheritance. What is the basic definition of inheritance? Inheritance is nothing but defining a class which inherited all the properties and methods of another class. Okay, this is the concept of inheritance. And see here, this class from which all the methods are inherited, is called parent class, or superclass, or base class. And the class which inherits all the properties from another class is called child class or base class. Derived class. Other names also. So this is the concept of inheritance. And what are the different types of inheritance? There are basically two types of inheritance: single level inheritance, multi level inheritance. Single level inheritance is, for example, let us take a class A, and from class A, it is a parent class. There are two subclasses. That is a class B, class C. That means properties and methods of A are inherited into B and C. This is called single level inheritance. That is single parent. And second one is multi-level inheritance. That means son is a base class, derived class or child class, and he inherits all the properties from both parents. That means both father and mother. sorry, father, mother. So son inheritance properties of both father and mother. So this is the example for multi-level inheritance, multiple inheritance. And we have another inheritance called multi-level inheritance. That is this is class A. Class A is inherited into class B, and this class B is inherited into class C. This concept is called multi-level inheritance. And let us take a simple example of inheritance. Let us take the parent class as father. Class father. It has some statements like methods like def, init, self dot property equal to, let us assign some amount like 20,000, def print property. This is our self parameter. In this the body, the statements are print of self dot property. So this is the parent class. In parent class we have self dot property equal to 20,000. This is one method, and another method is print data. This is called the default constructor. Init is called default constructor, and this father is inherited into the child class son. Father. So the father is a parent class and son is a child class. And the methods, let us assume there are no methods in this son, no methods in the class son, and we can print the property of father using the class son. Let us declare an object for the class son, s1 equal to son. That means we have declared the object s1 for the class son. And if we type s1 dot print property, obviously what we get the output print self dot property. That means 20,000. We get 20,000 output. That means this print property method is not present in class son, but since it is present in the parent class, the parent class methods are being inherited into the method child class method. This is the concept of inheritance. And the other concept in inheritance are method overriding and constructor overriding. That means let us write some methods in it. Some 10,000. Here the same method. Therefore, print property, self print property, and in this case, what we get output? We get output as 10,000 because the same method init is the constructor, and the same constructor is also defined in class son. That means this init method of a parent class has been overridden by the init method of the child class. This is called constructor overriding. And the second case, print property is a method in the parent class, and the same method is present in the child class with the same name. That means the same name method present in the child class is being overridden by the method in the parent class. The method of the parent class is being overridden by the method in the child class. This is called method overriding. So to prevent this, we use a method called super method to prevent overriding. Let us see how it works. Self comma property 1 comma property super dot init of 20,000. See, this super.init method belongs to the parent class. That means the parent see here we get self comma property. Self property equal to property. See, this super.init method belongs to the parent method, parent init method. That means this super.init method, we pass a parameter property. This property method will be assigned to the self.property in the parent method, okay, parent class, and self.property1 equal to property1, and create an object for as a child class s1.son s1 dot, okay, write a print data here, print data property of uh, 20,000 comma 10,000. So this first property 1 20,000 will be assigned to the son class. That means self dot property 1 equal property 1, and this 10,000, that means property will be given to the parent class, father class property, self dot property. So in this way we can prevent the constructor overriding and method overriding. Hope the seminar on topic of inheritance from the subject of Python programming is quite clear and people have understand the topic. And next I would like to discuss the concept of diode from the subject electronic devices and circuits. And we all know that the diode is a basic fundamental thing of electronic device and circuit, and diode has got many applications, like diode acts as an rectifier, diode acts as inverter, diode acts as clippers, etc. So what is a diode? Generally, basically diode is nothing but a two electrode or two terminal device which allows the current only to pass in only one direction, which restricts the current to flow in another direction. Generally, a diode is basically made of two semiconductors, that means p-type semiconductor and n-type semiconductor. P-type semiconductor is made by doping the pure silicon or germanium semiconductor with trivalent impurities. Trivalent impurities like boron, aluminum, gallium, etc. These trivalent impurities doped with pure silicon gives p-type semiconductor. In p-type semiconductor, majority carriers are holes and minority carriers are electrons. In n-type semiconductor, we will get n-type semiconductor by doping the pure silicon or germanium semiconductor with pentavalent impurities like phosphorus, arsenic, antimony, like this. So we get the p-type semiconductor by doping the pure silicon with a trivalent, and n-type by doping the pure silicon with the pentavalent. By joining these both p-type and n-type semiconductors together, we get a diode. The diode is called p-n junction diode. Generally, we represent p-type material as a hole with immobile acceptor ion, and n-type material with an electron with immobile donor ion. So p-type contains holes along with immobile acceptor ion, and n-type contains electrons along with immobile donor ions. So this is the clear-cut representation of p-n junction diode. So when p-type semiconductor and n-type semiconductor are brought together due to the concept of concentration gradient, that means here the majority carriers are holes and here the majority carriers are electrons. So concentration of holes is greater here in p-type and concentration of electrons is greater in n-type. So because of diffusion process, holes from p-type move to n-type semiconductor and electrons from n-type move to p-type. and they recombine with each other, and thus a barrier is formed in between the p-type and n-type semiconductors. A barrier. These are holes, these are electrons. In this barrier, since as a whole a p-type semiconductor is neutral and as a whole a n-type semiconductor is also neutral, since holes are moving from p-type to n-type, leaving the immobile negative charges on the left side, and since the electrons are moving from n-type to p-type, here leaving the positive ions, immobile positive ions. This is called depletion layer or potential barrier. Depletion layer. In this depletion layer, there will be some voltage because of the electric field induced in between the two charges. So this potential barrier voltage that does formed is known as barrier voltage or barrier potential. This is the concept of unbiased p-n junction diode. That means we did not apply any external voltage to the p-n junction diode. This is called unbiased p-n junction diode. Let us see the forward bias and backward or reverse bias of the p-n junction diode. In forward bias of the p-n junction diode, we connect the p-type material with the positive terminal of the voltage or external source and the n-type with the negative terminal of the external source. This is a positive terminal, this is negative terminal. Here initially there is potential barrier across the terminals in a p terminal and n side. Let us draw only holes and electrons here. Here immobile negative ions. Here immobile positive ions. This is a depletion layer. Since we apply reverse forward voltage, the positive charge of the positive plate of the external source repels the majority carriers, the holes. These are also positive charge. These same charges repel each other. So some holes will move from p side to the depletion layer and recombined with electrons. So the width of the depletion layer gets suppressed when you apply the forward voltage, forward bias voltage. So the width of the depletion layer gets suppressed. In forward bias, and if you draw the characteristic curve in forward bias, voltage, forward voltage V and forward current IF, see up to the point there is only small increase in current, and at a point suddenly the current increases exponentially. This is called knee point, or the voltage at this point is called knee voltage. And up to the knee voltage, whatever the voltage we apply is used to suppress the potential barrier. Okay. And at a knee point, the voltage supplied will totally suppress the potential barrier, and the barrier will become zero. And after that point, this positive plate terminal of the battery will repel the holes, and the holes freely move from p-type to n-type, and similarly electrons move from n-type to p-type. That means majority carriers are crossing the barrier, and the current will be from p to n as a whole, because holes from p to n and electrons from n to p, and the conventional current will be from p to n. So in forward bias, the current is mainly due to the majority carriers. This is the main point you should note in forward bias. And let us see the case of reverse bias. In reverse bias, we apply the positive terminal of the external source to the n side of the material p junction diode, and negative terminal of to the p type of the p junction diode. Since it is negative, it is positive. See here, the positive plate of the external source will will attract the holes which are majority carriers in p side, attract the holes. So the width of the depletion layer get increased because the holes are moving this side, so leaving the negative ions. So here similarly the electrons are in the majority carriers in p side, n side is electrons. The electrons are moving toward the positive terminal of the external source, so leaving the positive ions. So the width of the depletion will get increased when we apply reverse voltage to the p junction diode. If we take the reverse characteristics, reverse voltage VR and reverse current IR, up to some voltage there will be only reverse saturation current will be only in minimum amount, in small amount, and suddenly at a point some breakdown occurs and current increases rapidly. This is called reverse breakdown point. Let us see how it happens. When we apply reverse bias voltage in external circuit of the p junction diode, the negative terminal of the external source will attract the holes. Similarly, the positive attract the electrons. So the width of the depletion increases. As the width of the depletion increases, the potential barrier also increases. This potential barrier increases, so there will be no chance of the majority carriers to cross the barrier. So there is no question of majority carriers current in reverse bias. So the current in reverse bias is only due to the minority carriers. So the minority carriers in p side is electrons. The electrons are get enough energy at a particular point of reverse voltage. So because of enough kinetic energy, these fast moving electrons from p side will cross the junction. And similarly, the minority carriers of n side, what are the minority carriers of n side? Holes. These fast moving holes will cross the barrier. When the electrons, minority carriers of p side are fastly moving from p type to n side, there is a chance of collision with the atom of silicon atom. Let us see how it happens. See, this is a silicon atom. It has some electrons bonded in its valence shell. If an electron is fastly moving, it is a minority carrier of p side. Electron is fastly moving with because it acquires maximum kinetic energy. This may collide with the valence electron of silicon and it may replace the electron. There is a chance of forming an electron hole pair. So one electron replaces ejects one electron. These two electrons may collide with other two atoms and may eject 4 electrons. That means 1 gives rise to 2, 2 gives rise to 4, 4 gives rise to 8, and so on. This is known as avalanche multiplication, and this breakdown is known as avalanche breakdown. So because of avalanche breakdown, there is sudden increase in current in reverse process. See, up to some voltage there will be only a small amount of reverse saturation current, and at some point suddenly current increases. This is called reverse saturation point, and the current is due to the avalanche breakdown. This is about the reverse breakdown in p junction diode. Hope you people have enjoyed my seminar, and somewhat it is a little boring, but I have tried up to the mark. So thank you for giving this opportunity. Thank you all.